Welcome to the Whiskey Row History Show. I'm Constable Ron Williams, the Yavapai County Constable for the Prescott Precinct. With me is my co-host, Bradley G. Courtney, known as Brad to me. Brad is the Whiskey Row historian. You are the foremost scholar on Whiskey Row in Prescott. You've written 5 books, I believe.
Yeah, 4.5.
4.5 books. Yeah. 4 books and a pamphlet.
Yeah, a booklet. Yeah,
a booklet.
It's more than a pamphlet.
It's a booklet.
Yeah.
4 books and a booklet.
It's a bestseller, I can tell you that much.
It is. Yeah. It is. Doc Holliday in Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
And
300 copies gone. 2nd edition. We just got, did, and it's doing well.
And you're working on extending it to a full book.
Yeah, it may be Doc and Kate in Prescott, but it's going to be it's getting there. I keep learning more and more and more and expanding it. And it's growing.
Well, today on the Whiskey Row History Show, I'm gonna take lead on this one, and we'll you'll be color commentary.
I'm gonna be learning.
We bounce back and forth on whose story it is and whose color commentary. But today it's an Old West lawman story of Prescott. We're gonna be talking about Deputy John Murphy and the hanging of Dennis Dilda. It's Dilda, D-I-L-D-A.
Uh-huh.
So
I'm glad you made the joke because I was.
Yeah, well, we're gonna keep that straight.
Yeah, Dilda.
So Dennis Dilda was born in Georgia, and now it's unclear exactly when he was born. There are sources that say 1848, which would make him at the time of our story 37 years old. There are sources that say 1860, which would make him 24. 24 and 37 is a wide range.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we can't seem to narrow it down more than that. He was born in Raccoon Mills, Georgia.
Oh,
and that sounds like something that Bo and Luke Duke would live in.
Yeah, Raccoon Mills.
But so Raccoon Mills, nowadays it's I have it written down here. Nowadays it's Barryton, Georgia, which is kind of, if I remember my map correctly, Barryton is kind of the northwest corner of Georgia.
I like Raccoon Mills.
Raccoon Mills. It sounds homey.
Sounds southern.
It sounds southern. Get some biscuits and gravy down in
Raccoon Mills.
Anyway, so he lived in Raccoon Mills. He ends up moving to Texas. By 1880, he's living in Texas, and he marries his wife. And she's there with her brother and her father. He marries his wife, and almost immediately he's wanted for the murder of the gentleman in Texas. I don't have his name, but he's wanted for a murder in Texas. And he goes on the lam, and for 2 years they can't find him. He's finally arrested, and he's brought to justice.
Was he separated from his family or wife at that time?
No, he was. They were married.
They were following him around.
They were still in Texas. He met her in Texas.
Yeah,
and so he met her and her family in Texas.
So she went on the lam with him. In other words,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's unclear.
Yeah.
It sounds like he may have just kind of absconded and went into hiding. But 2 years after the alleged murder, he is arrested and tried, and he's found not guilty. Now, as the story develops through this whole podcast, you're probably going to understand why I'm saying this, but most likely there wasn't a body to be found. So that may be why he was acquitted. Again, the records I don't have access to the Texas records, and they're not really clear.
He might be with Jimmy Hoffa, maybe.
That's always a possibility too.
Jimmy Hoffa thing.
Exactly. So anyway, he's acquitted. So they decide that Texas is not the best place for them. So they move to Arizona. So Dennis Dilda and Mrs. Dilda and her brother and her father pack up, leave Texas, and they come to Arizona Territory in 1883, and they live in Salt River Valley, which is kind of where Tempe, Southeast Phoenix is today, through the Salt River Basin.
Okay.
And they live there. While they're living there, Dilda's wife's brother, so his brother-in-law, goes missing.
Oh, boy.
And nobody knows what happens to him. He just disappears one day. Again, a reoccurring theme in this podcast.
Disappearing people.
Disappearing people around Dennis Dilda.
Uh-huh.
So her brother disappears. And also, a friend of Dennis's, Mr. Nance, disappears.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Bermuda Dilda Triangle.
The Dilda Triangle,
The
exactly.
Dilda Triangle.
So he disappears, and never to be heard from again.
Wow.
possibly because of the missing brother, possibly because the family suspects Dennis may have done something. Dennis Dilda and his wife and their 2 little children move north. They leave the Salt River Valley of Arizona and they move north to north of Prescott. They end up settling in Walnut Creek, which is 35 miles northwest of Prescott, kind of due west of Paulden.
Right.
And anybody who knows Yavapai County or knows anything about northern Arizona, Paulden is a small unincorporated community that is, again, 35 miles north of Prescott on Highway 89. And Walnut Creek is probably 5 or 6 miles west of the highway. I keep wanting to say east, but it's west of the highway. And just a creek. And there was a ranch there. There were several ranchers there at the time in 1884, 1885. But they end up moving up that way, and they end up renting a house and a ranch from a Mr. Williscraft.
Okay, I know that name.
You know that name.
Yeah.
He's prominent in Prescott doings.
Right.
So
What year are we now?
we're 1885.
1885. Okay.
1885. They're up in Paulden area. Paulden didn't exist, but it was Walnut Creek, and so they settle into Mr. Williscraft's home. He lives in Prescott, which is why he's so popular in Prescott history knowledge coming up. He's a side character.
Yeah,
in
I see his
Prescott.
name come up a lot.
Yeah. But he lives in Prescott. He has that ranch house and the ranch up there. He rents it out to the Dilda family.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the agreement is he keeps one room of the ranch house reserved for himself. This is my room. He puts a lock on it. Inside that room is a chest with a lock on it.
Huh.
And this becomes pertinent later on. So Mr. Dilda is living, and I'm not sure if he's ranching, if he's farming, or what he's actually doing up there in Mr. Williscraft's ranch house, but he's working up there. And sometime in December of 1885, Mr. Williscraft returns to the house and finds that his room has been broken into and his chest has been broken into, and he has missing belongings. He ends up talking to a Mr. Jenkins who also lives in the area, and somehow Mr. Jenkins, it's really unclear, but Mr. Jenkins says that Dennis Dilda is the burglar. And I'm speculating here, but it's very possible that Mr. Jenkins saw Dennis Dilda with some of the belongings.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mr. Jenkins is a witness to this crime, and he implicates Dennis Dilda. So Mr. Williscraft, who owns the house, there's a lot of names being thrown around here, but Mr. Williscraft, who owns the house, he travels back the 35 miles to Prescott, which at that time, I mean, that's a full day's ride, ride to get back to Prescott. He gets back to Prescott, and he contacts the sheriff's office, the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, and makes a report of a burglary. And they end up going to the court and getting a warrant for the arrest of Mr. Dilda for burglary of Mr. Williscraft.
Right.
So the warrant is given to Deputy Sheriff Murphy. Now, John Murphy was originally from Massachusetts. He had been in Arizona since about 1877, and in 1885, he had been a deputy sheriff for 6 years.
Who was sheriff at the time? Do you know?
Mulvanon.
Mulvanon. Yeah,
Mulvanon.
There's a Mulvanon building, but
yes,
let's not say
Mulvanon. We'll talk about Sheriff Mulvanon a little later in this podcast. But yes, so Deputy Murphy, Massachusetts resident, been here since 77, and he's been a deputy for 6 years. He is well liked in Prescott. He is respected. He's liked. He's a good guy. He takes the warrant and he rides up by himself, gets on his horse, and he rides up 35 miles north to Walnut Creek. I take it back. He didn't go by himself. He went up with Mr. Williscraft.
Yeah, glad you're saying it.
I know, Williscraft.
Williscraft.
I've never heard of the name Williscraft before.
Never said it before today.
I know. So he rides up with Mr. Williscraft, and when they get there, it's late in the evening because it's a full day ride to get there. So it's later in the evening when they get there. They end up staying with one of Mr. Williscraft's neighbors, and I believe it's Beale. Let me confirm that before I spout off again. I'm almost positive his name is Beal.
Beal.
Beam. B-E-H-M. Beam.
Oh, the Beamer.
Beam. Yes.
Gotcha.
Mr. Beam. So they stay at the house of Mr. Beam. I know, not Mr. Bean. Not Mr. Bean. Mr. Beam.
Beam.
With the M.
Gotcha.
So they stay with Mr. Beam. And they have dinner there that night. They sleep there that night. And the next day, Deputy Murphy walks over. He doesn't even ride. It's next door, essentially. He walks over to the next door neighbor ranch, and the house is surrounded by a fence, and there's brush. So he goes up to the front door and knocks, and he speaks to Mrs. Dilda. And she says, well, my husband's not here right now. He's out. But he's expected back pretty soon. I'm not sure when. So Deputy Murphy walks back to the Beam ranch. And he does this several times during the day, where he keeps walking back over to the Dilda residence, the Williscraft ranch, and contacting Mrs. Dilda and asking her, is your husband home? And she keeps saying, no, he's not home. I expect him home anytime. I don't know where he is. So this happens literally several times during the day. Finally, the last time for that day, Deputy Murphy walks over there. It's evening now. It's getting dark. It's dusk. He walks over there. He, again, talks to Mrs. Dilda, and she's like, you know what? I don't know where he's at, but he's not home. So as he turns and he's walking back towards the gate for the fence of the ranch property, Dennis Dilda steps out with a rifle from behind a brush and shoots him in the back.
So he'd been watching.
He had been waiting, it sounds like, the entire day, hoping the deputy would just give up and go away. And finally, as it got darker and it was like, oh, this guy's not going away, he'll be back tomorrow again probably, he decided he was just going to kill him.
And he seems very comfortable with killing people.
Yes.
Seems like.
Seems like
Let's just shoot him. Let's just get rid of him.
Just get rid of him. Shoot him in the back. So he shoots Deputy Murphy in the back. Deputy Murphy draws his 6-shooter, turns around, and fires back at Dilda before he dies. So the hit him in the back. It ruptured a lot of things. He ends up dying within like 30 seconds or a minute, but he had enough time to turn around and fire one shot before he goes down.
He did fight back.
He did fight back.
Anyway.
He tried to fight back. Dennis Dilda takes Deputy Murphy's body, stuffs it in a burlap sack, and drags it into the house. Meanwhile, next door, and I say next door, these are ranches, so they're several hundred feet apart. But next door, Mr. Beam and Mr. Williscraft hear 2 gunshots coming from the area. So they very, very carefully, very quietly sneak towards the Dilda house, and they are calling out for Deputy Murphy. Well, nobody actually answers them, but they hear somebody whistling at them, trying to draw them in closer.
Oh, we're here.
Yeah. So somebody's whistling at them, trying to catch their attention and bring them closer to the house.
Wow.
They get spooked by that entire situation, so they pull back and go back to the house. And the next morning, we'll actually pause what they're doing and go back to Mr. Dilda.
Right.
So he digs a hole in the floor of his house, and he puts the body of Deputy Murphy in the hole.
No one will notice.
Yeah. And then covers. I'm not sure if it was a wood floor that he pulled up, dug a hole, and just replanked it again, or if it was a wood floor that he actually dug and just reburied.
No one will notice.
No one will notice.
I don't see him. Where'd he go? I don't know.
But that's what happens. So he buries him under the house, and he takes Mr. Williscraft's belongings, and he takes Deputy Murphy's rifle and his handgun, and he leaves. He flees. Mr. Williscraft and Mr. Beam in the morning come back to the ranch, to the Williscraft ranch where Dennis Dilda and family
So they left that time. When they heard the whistling, they got way out of there.
They backed out. They went back to Beam's house.
Okay, Beam's house.
Yeah, they went back and they spent the night. They said that gave them the creeps. They heard gunshots. Somebody's whistling at them.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like we're being drawn in to be shot also, maybe.
No sign of Murphy.
No signs of Murphy anywhere. The hackles on their neck went up, the hair on their neck went up, and they said, yeah, we're done. And they went back to the house and waited for daylight. So come daylight, they go back out to the house. And Dilda's not there. The wife is there, but she's, again, I don't know where my husband is.
Where's Murphy? Oh, I don't know that either.
Yeah, I don't know where Deputy Murphy is, but there's blood on the ground in the dirt by the gate.
Oh,
and
oops.
there's enough blood that both Williscraft and Mr. Beam say, yeah, he's dead. We heard the shots. Here's the blood. He's dead. So they get their horses and they ride back to Prescott. Again, it's a full day ride back to Prescott.
Yeah.
So they get to Prescott on the 20th. And they get to Prescott on the 20th. They go and talk to Sheriff Mulvenon and say, hey, we think your deputy's dead. And so you're asking about Sheriff Mulvenon.
Right. Now he's involved.
The actual sheriff of the county. So Sheriff Mulvenon, I like to call him the most hangingest sheriff ever of Yavapai County. He presided over, I think, 4 hangings.
Most hangingest.
That's a word now.
Yeah, I like it.
He was sheriff for 2 terms. Now, back in territorial days, terms are 2 years. So he served from 1885 until 1888. All of 85, all of 86, all of 87, all of 88. Two full terms of 4 years total. And he hung, I believe, 4 people in those 4 years.
In the plaza? Would all those are in the plaza? Or
but Dilda. We'll talk about Dilda's hanging when we get to it.
Different
but
area.
all of them were, all the other ones were in the plaza. It was very typical of the era that the hangings were done on the east side of the plaza,
right,
which is the Cortez side of the courthouse. Because at this point, in 1879, the brick courthouse in the center plaza was already built.
Right.
And so the courthouse had been there for now 6 years. The original brick courthouse that was in the plaza. There was a courthouse prior to that.
The courthouse that Doc Holliday would have seen.
Yes, Virgil would have saw before he left. Yep. So at that brick building, that brick courthouse on the east side of the plaza on Cortez Street is where they did all the hangings. They would build the gallows, build a wall, build everything fresh every time, and hang somebody if they needed it.
That's spooky when you walk that area. You have to think about that. You go,
And now people walk their dogs there every day. I park there every day going to court.
That's right.
Yeah. So I park in the hanging grounds every day.
I've seen the old Constable Mobile.
Yep.
The
Constable Mobile.
Yep.
So Sheriff Mulvenon, again, most hangingest sheriff. He'd been sheriff at this point for only like 12 months. He'd just been elected that year, taken office in January, and this will end up being his first hanging. But he's told his deputy's probably dead, so he gets a posse together, including the 2 men that came, and they ride north back up to Dilda's house, and I'm assuming they have a warrant, but my research hasn't actually divulged that he in fact had one, but I'm assuming they had a warrant.
Right.
They ride up to Dilda's house. They go into the house and they find the signs that the body's under in the floor, and they exhume him and they find out, yep, he's dead. Deputy Murphy is dead. So now they have a murder warrant, definitely a murder charges on Dilda.
Right.
Also at this time, they're realizing that Mr. Jenkins, the witness who saw Dilda with Mr. Williscraft's stuff originally set off the whole warrant, he's missing now.
No.
So now he's missing.
The Dilda Triangle.
He fell into the Dilda Triangle, and now he's missing.
Boy.
So Mulvenon and his trackers determine that Dilda headed north. Well, the only place to go north, really, is Ash Fork. Because even then, in 85, Ash Fork was about 3 years old.
Okay.
And the train went through the train that went from Santa Fe through Flagstaff, through Williams, through Ash Fork, and into Kingman was all in effect by 1885.
Got it.
So if he's going north, unless he was going to veered off to Williams, which is another 20 miles, or veered off to Seligman, which is another 20 miles, he was going to Ash Fork.
Right.
So the trail leads north. They go north up to Ash Fork, and they find him sleeping under a tree near Ash Fork. They take him into custody. He has Deputy Murphy's handgun. He has his rifle. He has Williscraft's items, all on his possession or near his possession.
And he's going, what? Where'd these come from?
Exactly. These aren't mine. I found them. Yeah. These aren't my pants.
Who put these here?
Yeah. Yeah, that goes back when I was a cop for many, many years and deputy sheriff. People You catch them and they consent to a search and you find stuff on him. You find, 18 pounds of meth in their pocket. And they're like, these aren't my pants. I just found them.
I'm holding them for somebody.
I'm holding them for somebody. Yeah. Exactly. So, but no, Dilda has all the evidence of the murdered people on him. He's taken into custody without a fight. I guess he's better at ambushes than he is.
Well, he was sleeping.
He was sleeping. He was sleeping. They catch him. He's sleeping. He's outnumbered, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1. He just gives up. So Sheriff Mulvanon and the posse take Dilda back to Prescott. Now he comes back to Prescott, and I believe it's December 21st, 22nd. He comes back to Prescott. Let me check my notes real quick because I want to get this right because this is amazing. Yes. So he actually comes back to Prescott on December 24th, Christmas Eve day. The posse brings Dilda back to Prescott. Right. Now remember, Deputy Murphy was killed on the 19th. On the 20th, Williscraft and Beam they discover the blood and no Deputy Murphy.
That's when the whistling. They heard the
whistling. And they heard the whistling, and they go back to Prescott. Well, they heard the whistling the night of the 19th. On the 20th, they go back to Prescott.
You got it.
On the 20th, Mulvanon and the posse head up north. They catch him on the 22nd, and on the 24th, he's back in Prescott. So this all happens really fast. This is 5 days.
But there's a lot of riding. So
there's a lot of riding.
Whole days to get back.
That's days and days on horses to get back and forth. But it's 5 days from the time Deputy Murphy is murdered until the time that they ride into Prescott with the murderer.
Right.
So that's some effective law enforcement when you figure the fact that it's all being done on horseback.
Right. And out in the middle of nowhere.
Do
they have Murphy's body with them, or
that I don't know if they brought it, when they brought him back. That I don't know.
They did discover the body.
They did discover the body. So they bring back Dilda. He's lodged in the county jail, which is in the brand new brick courthouse in the plaza. Up on I think of the jail. The jail is on the second floor, but I'm not 100% sure. They bring him. He's locked in the jail. So he gets an initial hearing, grand jury indictment, a trial, and sentenced to death in 4 days.
Swift justice.
Prescott did not play around. They were not happy with one of their deputies being killed. And within 4 days of arriving in Prescott and being lodged in the jail, he's sentenced to death.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
Correct.
I've been wanting to say that.
Correct. So. Well, you know what? Here's the perfect time.
Yeah. Swift justice.
It is very swift justice. Now, unlike movies, just because you were sentenced to death by hanging doesn't mean they drug you out the next day and they hung you. They actually, in Arizona, you had a 60-day appeal process. So if you were sentenced to death, you were actually given 60 days to appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court to have them hear your case and either overturn it or keep it. So he did his appeal, and it was denied.
What'd he say?
That I don't know.
I didn't do it.
I don't know.
I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah. Actually, I will say he said he didn't do it, because I do know that even to the day of his hanging, he denied ever killing Deputy
Innocent
Murphy.
Man.
I'm an innocent man.
Dang.
Now, so he's arrested. He's in jail for 64 days, 65 days until he's hung. During that time, his wife takes her 2 little kids, packs everything up, and she moves back down to Salt River Valley to be with her dad. She abandons him.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, well, her meal ticket's gone.
She could have disappeared, you know?
Yeah. So she leaves with her kids, and they go down to Salt River Valley. During that 60-day period, she does come up once to visit him while he's in jail, but doesn't stay. Finally, February 5th, I want to say. Let's verify. February 5th. I have the dates, but there was a lot of them bouncing around my head.
Dates are hard to remember.
They are. So February 5th, finally, the day comes. Dennis Dilda is going to get hung for the murder of Deputy Murphy. Now, I will backtrack 1 second. During that 60 days that he was in custody, waiting for his appeal, Jenkins, the neighbor for Williscraft who saw Dennis Dilda with all the accoutrements he stole, Jenkins, who was missing, is found. He's
alive?
In a shallow grave behind Dennis Dilda's house.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah. He's in a shallow grave behind Dennis Dilda's house.
Behind the house. He was right there. Oh, my God.
So he had Deputy Murphy buried in a makeshift cellar, basically. And he had Jenkins buried behind the
It
house.
must have been a quick burial, I think.
Yeah.
Hiding out and you could be seen.
Yeah.
You know, so he was in a hurry.
So I don't know who found him, if Williscraft found him, but he was found in a shallow grave.
Jeez.
So, I mean, at this point, they're not even trying to do an investigation because it's pretty obvious Dennis killed him and he's already being hung.
And Mulvanut, what was the other two guys with the whistling? They could have been.
Williscraft
were lucky.
and Beam are very lucky because if they would have thought, oh, that's Deputy Murphy whistling to us to come up quietly,
They would have
probably been shot and killed as
They
well.
would have been goners.
And then there would be no witnesses to anything.
Well,
So they got lucky. They were smart enough to realize this may have been a trap and back out. So Dennis Dilda, the day comes, February 5th. He wakes up. He's going to be hung. He's going to be hung at noon that day. Sheriff Mulvannon comes to him and asks him about his, do you want clergy? He denies clergy. He asked, Sheriff Mulvannon asked him, "What for your last meal? What do you want?" And I have to read this because this is an extensive list. This is what this man ate on his last day. His final meal was spring chicken breaded, fried oysters, lamb chops, green peas, tenderloin steak, mushrooms, English pancakes with jelly, potatoes, bread, and coffee. He also asked for a shot of brandy. That man, his last meal, he ate like a king.
Did he eat the whole?
That's a great question. That I don't know.
Yeah, man. I'm just taking my time here. Oh, I ate the steak. Yeah, hold on. Got to eat the steak.
Yep. I'm still eating. Maybe he thought if it took too long, maybe they'd cancel the hanging.
Pretty good idea, really.
The county, as was typical of the day, the county paid for a fresh haircut for him and paid for a fresh suit for him. So he had a haircut, a shave, and a suit paid for by the county.
Got to look good for a hanging.
Got to look good for a hanging.
Yeah.
Hey, we're civilized.
Yeah.
We're civilized. We're going to give you a perfectly legal hanging, and we're going to make you look good doing it. So he gets his haircut, shave, and suit. He eats his breakfast. About 11 a.m., Sheriff Mulvannon comes into the cell to read Dilda the execution notice that today you are to be hung at noon at the that basically the whole the execution notice. It's part of the procedure. The minor reporter who was there noticed that Sheriff Mulvannon seemed more nervous during that interaction than Dilda did.
He didn't get the hang of hanging yet.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that too.
Dilda,
Yeah.
Dilda was ice. He just was fine.
He accepted
Mulvannon, this is his first hanging. He's a little, antsy about it.
He didn't have a taste yet.
He didn't have the taste for it yet.
But he's going to get one.
Yeah. So I will say also, like we talked about, all the hangings typically were done on the courthouse plaza on the east side. Well, the county and the sheriff's office was very worried because of the nature of the hanging, that it wasn't just some other guy killed, it was a deputy killed, that the crowds might be unruly. And they were worried that it would make a spectacle of the hanging, and they wanted to have a nice, respectable hanging. It sounds weird, but they wanted a nice, respectable hanging, and they didn't want to have disruptions.
Right.
So they actually moved the hanging. They decided to build the gallows a half mile north of the plaza, and I don't know exactly where they did it, but if you look at Prescott, modern day Prescott, and you look at the how the hills and how the flat areas and everything else, I think the only real area they could have done it was on Granite Creek, where Granite Creek Park is now.
Way up there.
Way up there. That's about a half mile north of town.
Yeah.
And it's pretty flat because of the river.
Right above the Canton Dragon Chinese, that whole
Depot Marketplace. Yeah.
Shopping area. Yeah, Depot Marketplace.
So I think they would have done it there, realistically.
That makes sense.
I mean, hypothetically, they could have done it where the Depot Marketplace is now. I don't know what it looked like prior to leveling and straightening and the train coming through.
I remember seeing in photographs, you could see buildings.
Yeah.
In 1900, there were buildings.
It was
there.
outside of town, and it was a mile and a half or half a mile north.
I think you're right on.
Probably right.
Yeah.
So they decide they build a gallows out of town because they figure if people have to walk a half mile for a hanging, then they're not going to show up, and we don't have to worry about hecklers.
Remind me of what day this was? February?
February 5th. And it's also February.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know how it was then, but February, except for this year, February in Prescott is snow season.
Yeah.
You get snow. I mean, I can't tell you how many birthdays, like my birthday's February, how many birthdays in February I worked pushing cars out of the snow for the sheriff's office.
It's cold.
It's cold. It's snowy. So they have this plan. That's the plan. Hold out to the town. Nobody's going to show up and no disruptions. Well, the joke's on them.
Yeah.
Because for a town of 1,800 people and a county of 5,000 to 8,000 people, over 1,000 people showed up for the hanging.
Word got around.
Over half the town shows up to watch this hanging.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
So they have a procession that goes from the jail and the courthouse all the way to the hanging site, to the gallows, which is a half mile. So this procession, I have to read the list of people because it's a who's who of Prescott.
Oh, I can't wait.
So the procession included Sheriff Mulvanon, Sheriff Stein of Mojave County, Town Marshal Dodson of Prescott.
Oh, good old Dodson.
Sheriff, Marshal Dodson. Former Yavapai County Sheriff Walker. He was a sheriff in the late 1860s.
Joseph Walker.
Yeah, Joseph Walker.
Yeah.
He founded half founded the town. He discovered it. And Sheriff Hinkle, who was his deputy originally and became a sheriff.
Hinkle.
And they traveled by yours and my favorite new word. They traveled by Baroque. It was a Baroque.
Ooh. You were waiting for that.
I've been waiting to say that all hour. They traveled by Baroque. And for
How'd they travel?
By Baroque.
Oh, thank you.
So for those of you who don't know, because we didn't know until the story came up, a Baroque is a very ornate, fancy, four-wheeled cart pulled by four horses.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something the King of England would ride in and do this.
Were they wearing paleo coats?
Paleo totes. They may have been wearing paleo totes.
Oh, in other words,
in their Baroque.
Gotcha.
Yes.
In their Baroque.
It's a French word. It probably means wagon. So they're traveling with the to be executed. I don't know. He's not the deceased yet. I don't know what to call him. The to be deceased, to be hung.
Boy.
The hangee.
Let me think about that. Yeah. Let me think of that. There's got to be a word.
But with the hangee. He's the hanger and the hangee. They're traveling with the hangee in the Baroque.
Potential hangee.
And they're led by Prescott's two militia companies. Because back then, you had militias that guarded towns and communities and such. So you had the Prescott Greys and the Prescott Rifle Company. And they were the two militia companies in town.
Was Bucky O'Neill here yet?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
And he was here for this.
Okay.
So Bucky O'Neill is the captain of the Prescott Greys. So he's the captain of one of the militia companies. So he is in the honor guard of these two militia companies, leading the Baroque with all the dignitaries and the hangee to the execution site.
Manly, tough.
Yep.
Bucky.
Yep. The future sheriff of Yavapai County, Bucky O'Neill. He'll be sheriff in like 3 years, I think.
Future Rough Rider.
Yeah, future Rough Rider, future mayor.
Mayor.
Yeah, future editor of the Miner, I believe. Is
Hoof and Horn.
Hoof and Horn.
Yep.
The Hoof and Horn. So, it takes how long it takes for them to get from the jail up to the hang site. They march Mr. Dilda up to the gallows. The crowd is very respectful. No, not a peep. Everybody's just watching quietly. He has no last words. Sheriff Mulvanon gives him a shot of whiskey to calm his nerves, which, although I still think that Dilda's nerves didn't need to be calmed.
Mulvanon needed
his shot. They bind his arms. I think they put the bag over him. I'm not sure if they did that back then or not.
There's a photograph of this, isn't there?
This one, I don't think there is.
Not this one?
Not this one. There's a lot of pictures of hangings in Yavapai County. I don't think they have this one, though.
Of Dilda.
They put the rope on him, and at noon sharp, per the execution order, at noon sharp, Sheriff Mulvanon pulls the lever, the trapdoor drops, Dilda drops, snaps his neck, and he is pronounced dead at 12:15. So they let him hang for 15 minutes. The doctor checks him, and he's dead.
Wow.
Bucky O'Neill is part of the militia surrounding the gallows. Make sure nobody rushes it. Make sure there's no disorder going on. The minute the lever is pulled and the trapdoor opens, Bucky O'Neill faints.
Oh, I love it.
He drops like a sack of potatoes. He faints.
Tough old Bucky.
Now, I'll give Bucky the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
He may have locked his knees standing at attention around the gallows
I've
and
seen it
cut
happen.
off the blood.
Yep.
I've seen it happen at
I
the
have.
police academy.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen in, in other locations.
But the timing.
But the timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
So whether giving him the benefit of the doubt and Bucky just locked his knees on blood flow and it just happened to happen at that time and he dropped passed out, or if it made him sick and he passed out.
Who could blame him?
Yeah, exactly.
But he's stuck.
Either way, Bucky
my
drops
knees.
like a sack of potatoes and passes out. Not a good look for the future sheriff of Yavapai County.
That's awesome.
But it is what it is. So Dilda did ask. The one thing he did ask is for his wife to send his body back to his wife. Well, his wife never claimed it.
I would think that she'd kind of disassociate with.
She did.
Yeah.
So he's hung. And I believe he's buried in Citizen Cemetery in the over where the Despicables are buried.
Right.
In the unnamed section.
We could find that.
We could find it.
Yeah.
I did not research that for this.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I would assume that was the cemetery. That's where everybody else who's despicable ends up being buried.
Yeah, a lot of, like you said, they don't have graves.
Yeah.
I mean, gravestones. I mean,
yeah. So Dennis Dilda killed, well, he was believed to have killed a man in Texas. And he was never charged. He was charged, but he was never found guilty. He was found innocent of it, probably because they didn't have a body.
Right.
Then he was suspected in the killing of Mr. Nance, also in Texas. He was suspected of killing his wife's brother. He was suspected. Well, I'm saying suspected because nobody saw him do it, but he killed Mr. Jenkins. He killed Deputy Murphy. And he tried. That's 5 people he probably killed.
Do you know if Mrs. Dilda said anything about her brother being gone?
The family always suspected,
right,
including her, always suspected that Dennis did it.
So she didn't really know, but yeah. So
nobody ever knew any of these things, but everybody suspected. And like you said, it was like the Bermuda Triangle. It was the Dilda Triangle. People around him tend to go missing, and sometimes they pop up dead, usually buried in a shallow grave.
There are signs here that we need to be aware. Yeah,
boy. Yeah. So that's one of the more well documented. There's several well documented, deputy sheriff and hanging exploits in Yavapai County, but that's one of my favorites.
One of my favorite hangings.
It's one of my favorite hangings. Honestly, it is. No, honestly, because Dilda is essentially he's essentially a serial killer.
He's
essentially a serial killer. He's not doing it for joy.
He gets no sympathy from anybody.
When people get in his way of what he wants to do, the easiest thing to do is just kill him and bury him, and that way you can go on.
You nice looking, normal looking guy.
Yes. So there's a photo that's floating around, and we'll have that on the podcast. That I mean, everybody, including I think Charlotte Hall, says it's a legitimate picture. Right. The quality seems too good. And the setup doesn't seem right for the era,
right,
to me. But it'll be up on this podcast, so people can actually look at it and make their own decision.
It might be Dilda.
It very well could be Dilda, his wife, and his 2 little kids, which are toddlers.
Yeah, I've seen the photograph.
Yeah, he looks like Joe Dirt. I mean, he's just disheveled, long hair.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. She looks like Little House on the Prairie, and the kids just look like you'd expect the miners' children from the coal mines of West Virginia.
Little House on the Prairie and Charles Manson.
Kind of, sort of. Little House on the Prairie and Charles Manson.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's one of my favorite stories. I wanted to share it.
So thank you, God, for these great hanging stories.
Thank you, God, for these great hangings, because without them, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah, it makes for great reading and podcast.
Exactly. So that's pretty much it. And we'll be back again for the next episode of the Whiskey Row History Show. Bradley G. Courtney, author and the Whiskey Row historian, and myself, Ron Williams, Yavapai County Constable for Prescott Precinct. Thank you for tuning in. And like I always say, if you like it, please watch again. And if you didn't like it, maybe we'll be better next time. Thank you.